With English football looking hideously predictable this season, could we be relying on the good old FA Cup to give us some interest, some intrigue and some unpredictability to round out the 2024-25 season? We have our 8 quarter-finalists confirmed. Last night I was on the watch along. If there's 2 things I hate, it's Ipswich losing close games and extra time. So I had the joy of covering Forest beating Ipswich on penalties. But it did give us an interesting look to the FA Cup quarter-finals. And by God, we need it. Let's be quite frank about this. Liverpool are going to win the Premier League. Okay, haven't won it many times in the last 30 years or whatever it is. But it's still one of the established elite. It looks a lot like we're going to get the 3 teams promoted from the EFL, relegated back down to the EFL. And by God, look at the top of the EFL. We've got 3 parachute teams looking like they're going to come up and replace them. We could even get Birmingham and Wrexham maybe as the top 2. I'm sure Wickham will have something to say about that in League One. It is following the money, the established order. But in the FA Cup, there is a chance, a small chance, with one giant Manchester City-sized elephant left in there. So, I was planning on talking about this, and in the brilliant Benjamin Bloom Football Channel WhatsApp group, I got a message this morning telling me the following, which tipped me right off and sent me down this path here. Of the 8 remaining quarter-finalists, 4 of them have never won the FA Cup. Bournemouth, Brighton, Palace, and Fulham. I think Fulham were in the final in the 70s, early 80s, maybe twice actually, if I'm remembering my match of the 70s and 80s watching back in the day. Palace, I've definitely seen in the final. I could talk about Alan Pardew dancing around on the touchline, or Ian Wright in the replay final in the early 90s. Brighton were definitely in the final and nearly won. Didn't someone miss a sitter towards the end of the game to win it, and then they ended up losing? Bournemouth, I've got no recollection of being anywhere near the final, but correct me if I'm wrong. They're all in the mix. Preston from the wonderful EFL are in there. Preston have an illustrious history. They last won the FA Cup in 1938. Aston Villa, despite their league and European Cup win, late 70s, early 80s, wasn't it? 81? Yeah, I should know that because Ipswich were damn close to winning it, weren't they? They haven't won the FA Cup since 1957. Forest, who got through last night, haven't won it since 1959. So we could get a new winner to the FA Cup, or we could get someone actually getting a go who hasn't won it for a while. Or, dun, 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 we could get Manchester City win it. Manchester City last won it in 2023 and have won it a lot. And the established elite have won it a lot. I've just done a little look through from 2010. So we got 25 tournaments, 15 tournaments there. Let me start that again. From 2010, we've got 15 tournaments, and these 5 teams, Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Man United and Liverpool, have won 13 out of the 15 tournaments. We got the shock and awe of Wigan winning it. Well, they had to beat Man City in the final. And we got Leicester winning it. They beat Chelsea in the final, I think I'm right in saying. So it could have been 15 for 15 if those 2 finals had gone with the form. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that with 745 teams entering the FA Cup every season, 0.67% of the sides have won 86% of the trophies in the last 15 tournaments. Let that sink in. Less than 1% wins 86% of these trophies. Okay, I'm stretching the point a little bit with the 745 teams, but the 86% is a very, very real number. Maybe this is not necessarily a football comment, but a comment on the way we organise our societies and the exponential wins of those at the top. They don't just win the majority, they win everything, don't they? But there you go. So, I'm sure, being English, we all love the underdog and the underdog spirit, and in the status game of life, we don't like those people swanning around at the top, stealing all the status and all the glory. I'm sure the majority of watchers of the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel, which contains a lot of EFL supporters, are going to want a surprise. Could we get one? Let's have a look. First quarter final, Brighton versus Forest. I'm looking at the odds to win the tournament. Brighton 5-1, Forest 10-1. So I think the bookies are going heavy on Brighton's home advantage being key in the quarterfinals before we go to Wembley, don't we, for the semi-finals. If Forest win that, that'll obviously flip massively. Obviously, you're going to lose 4 teams as well, so the odds are going to shorten. Whatever. But let me know your thoughts. And it's good. It is good because we've got 2 ex-EFL teams there. Brighton promoted under Chris Hughton. Forest, in fact, getting rid of Chris Hughton and then getting promoted under Steve Cooper. But recently, teams that have been in the EFL for a fair wee while, not in and amongst the trophies for, well, what do we say? Brighton have never won it, and Forest, since the Brian Clough glory days, haven't been in and around it. I'm sure everyone would be pretty pleased if one of those 2 sides win it. And Forest are having a season of seasons. They're up in 3rd. And even though they took Myler out on penalties, go and win it, Forest. Go ahead and do it now. But would you be at all upset if it was Brighton or Forest? Let me know in the comments. Now, your lowest ranking team is Preston. So we do have an EFL team, and we've got a team that defends well and has got 3 hulking centre-backs and loves to press at the start of games and puts you under pressure, and a manager in Paul Heckingbottom that got Sheffield United promoted, you know, with that kind of hard-to-beat, sturdy kind of outlook. Maybe that's a good team to be in there rather than, you know, one of the teams a bit further up in the EFL Championship who's going to try and football their way against Aston Villa. That probably won't work. And Preston have home advantage. Preston, obviously, are mass outsiders here in this. They are 100-1 to win the FA Cup. Villa are 4-1. So they're second favourites behind Man City, who will come on to talk about, obviously, because they're facing the lowest ranking team. But we could get ourselves an upset. And that is the upset in the truest sense of the word. I always look at it from a team from a division below beating a team from a division or more higher. Let me know. I'm sure Preston going to win the FA Cup? I don't know about that. Would you be happy if Villa won the FA Cup? Classic old club. And okay, they're in the Champions League now and they've got a bit of money behind them. But hey, it'd make a change, wouldn't it? From Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, etc. So come on the Villa, come on the Preston. Let me know in the comments who you'd prefer out of those guys. Then Fulham and Palace. And I don't want to patronise these 2 sides, but 2 of the smaller London clubs. We obviously have the giant Arsenal, Chelsea, and Spurs taking all of the glory from the kind of London clubs. Daniel, Spurs don't necessarily win very much, but certainly Arsenal and Chelsea win a hell of a lot. They're the dominant kind of southern-based teams. Fulham and Palace are both in there. Fulham play lovely football, don't they, under Marco Silva? They're competitive in the Premier League. They do have a habit of maybe going under against the bigger sides, but they've got Palace here. And Palace will be thinking exactly the same thing. They've got Fulham here. So we're going to get one of Fulham or Palace in the semi-finals. Obviously, we've had Palace in the final fairly recently, like 2013, 14, 15, somewhere around that, losing to Man United. Did they take it to extra time as well? Louis van Gaal and again, Alan Pardew dancing. Don't worry, I'll never do that again. But Fulham or Palace? Be a fun FA Cup winner. Which takes us to the elephant in the room, which is Manchester City. And they go away to Bournemouth. Now, I'm actually quite pleased about this because even though Forest have been brilliant and Brighton have been brilliant, maybe the hardest draw here is Bournemouth away. Bournemouth have taken some teams to the cleaners this season with Iraola and Cliver and even like Semenyo stepping up from League One. They've got brilliant centre-backs and they've brought in some what I call stepping stone players for big money who are probably going to go to the Champions League. But they seem to have a good collection of them together for this one season. That's all it takes, that one season, a great team. And you could have Bournemouth winning the FA Cup. I know some people have some issues with Bournemouth in the EFL. I know they breached FFP and they had more money than people maybe gave them credit for. But in the Premier League, Bournemouth are, they're more Robin Hood than Scrooge McDuck, aren't they? So go on Bournemouth is what I say. And there you have Manchester City, whose priority is, of course, to get into the Champions League. They're currently 4th in the Premier League. Could Bournemouth do it and get them knocked out? It feels like if we get Man City in the semi-finals and they're down there at Wembley on their old kind of familiar stamping ground, that they'll go on and win it. So it does really feel like now is the time. Get it done. If Bournemouth knock Man City out, there is no debate here, and we are definitely getting a shock winner, a surprise winner, a new winner. Use whatever words you're comfortable with. A non-established elite winner of the FA Cup. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Will the FA Cup be the cure to boredom? How can we fix? I mean, that's a big debate. This level of boredom in the established elite winning anything. Are we going to get one of the 7 teams there as a surprise, happy days, interesting winner? Or get in the comments, are Man City just going to go ahead and win it again for the elites? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you want to check out my reaction live, my misery watching Ipswich lose on penalties to Forest last time. Look, if Forest go on and win it and we don't get a boring FA Cup winner, I'll take it on the chin. Get in the comments. Will we get a shock winner in the FA Cup?